Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to share with you a review of the new Colourpop palettes. I have the Give It To Me Straight Eyeshadow palette and then the InNudeEndo highlighter palette. So I'm going to be doing a tutorial using both palettes, what's on my face right now, and also swatching all the shades and give you guys my thoughts about both palettes. So if you guys are interested in seeing all of that about the new Colourpop palettes, then just keep on watching. So I'm going to go through swatches and everything pretty quickly because you guys will see a lot of the shades in action in my tutorial. I'm going to start off with the eyeshadow palette, the Give It To Me Straight eyeshadow palette. This is a $16 palette. It has 12 shades. You have 5 shimmers and 7 matte shades, and then you also get 0.36 ounces of product in here. I'm going to go ahead and swatch everything. My palette is already super powdery because I just finished using it. So you definitely get some fallout with these shades, but it's nothing too crazy. It's more so fallout in the pan and not so much like when you're using it. You don't get it like all over your face. It doesn't get super messy, which is awesome because it's a pretty colorful palette. It looks really neutral, but once you guys see swatches, you'll see it's pretty colorful. You do get a lot of like purple tones in here and not so many like brown tones like some previous Colourpop palettes. So starting off with the top shade, this is called Matter of Fact. This is a matte color that is like an eggshell color, but it also has a little bit of a pink hinge to it. And that's what I use to highlight my brow bone today. And then we have up front, this is my lid color. This is such a beautiful champagne color. I love that shade. It's very light. And then the next one is probably my second favorite shimmer shade. This one is Straight Up. This is like an orangey copper shade and has a little bit of like a pinkish hue to it too. These just swatch so pretty and pigmented. And then we have BS, which is like this coppery, more like a terracotta color. It's a matte shade. It has a little bit of shimmer in the pan, like gold glitter in it, but it definitely doesn't show up when you apply it on your eyes. And then the next shade is called Frank. This reminds me of a shade in the Modern Renaissance palette. It's like a brick brownish shade. Like all the mattes in here and all the shimmer shades. So this is a very, very consistent Colourpop palette. And then I've worn this shade on my lid candid for like a really pretty like orangey fiery look. And some of the shades, especially in the second row, remind me of like Urban Decay Naked Heat. Like these shades right here. Ooh, getting them all over the place. But these middle shades remind me of the Urban Decay Naked Heat palette a lot. Next we have this purple tone, Forthright, and this is the chunkiest shade in the palette. It actually just isn't super chunky, but it has a lot of fallout to it. So you definitely want to use that wet, and it's something that's gonna not show up as metallic as the other metallic colors. And then we have the shade Downright. So this is more of like a grayish purple color, and this is what I used as my transition shade for this look today. This is definitely a lighter tone. Then the shade Truth Hurts is like your standard orangey brown shade, like a transition shade. It looks kind of light in the pan, but when you actually apply this onto your eyes, you're gonna get a lot of pigmentation. I know it looks pretty light, but like on the eyes, I was really surprised that it actually shows up super pigmented. So you definitely wanna go in with a light hand. And then we have the purple shade that is shimmery, Be Blunt. This is a darker purple shade. And then we have the shade TMI, which is like this deeper berry tone that is matte. And then the last shade is called Actually, and this is like a eggplant color. It's a very deep brown shade. So those are all 12 shades in the palette. So it really gives me Urban Decay Naked Heat vibes once I swatched everything and started playing with the palette a little bit more. It, to me, looked a lot more neutral when I first got it, and then once I started actually using the palette, you can tell it's like very orangey and purple. Those are all the tones, and I love the colors. All right, and since I keep mentioning the Naked Heat palette, I just pulled it out real quick so I can actually see if there's any swatch comparisons. The Naked Heat palette definitely looks a lot more orange, but just some of the metallic shades look very, very similar. All right, so these are the 4 metallic shades in the Naked Heat palette, and then compared to all the metallics in here, you guys can see a lot of similarities. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. If you've been wanting the Naked Heat palette, You get a lot of similar shades, just they look so similar. And then if you just look at the matte shades, you're gonna get those like warm purples and browns. You get a lot of similarities in the mattes too, just like very standard purple and brown colors. So that was something that I definitely noticed once I started swatching the palette, once I started playing with it. So if you've been on the hunt for the Naked Heat palette or just wanting to get it, maybe you can get it for $16 instead of $54, I think the Naked Heat palette is. So that's just like a little impromptu comparison that I felt like doing in the moment. But anyways, these are all of the swatches. The shades that are the least pigmented or just a little bit more difficult to work with in here are Forthright, this one, just because it has a little bit more fallout. So if you want to use it like on your lid, you want to definitely use it wet. And some of the other metallic shades in the palette you can definitely just use dry with a brush or your finger. Especially with your finger, you're gonna get a lot of pigmentation. These three shades especially are really, really pigmented and show up beautifully. So Forthright just has a bit more fallout and it's a chunkier shade, and so is Be Blunt. It's just a little bit drier too. So those are the metallics that are less pigmented and less of that like foiled look compared to these top three metallics that you would normally use for your lid. Anyways, those are the ones that I'm going to gravitate towards the most. And then the shade TMI actually swatches pretty sheer, but when you apply it on the eye, it's definitely going to show up. It's still going to be really pigmented. So this is the swatch of TMI. It definitely shows up very like subtle, but on the eye it's definitely no problem. All right, so I zoomed you guys in to swatch the InNudeEndo highlighter palette. That way if any of the shades look similar, they are a little closer up so you guys can see them. This is the palette. It is $18. It is 0.66 ounces of product and you get 6 shades obviously. So the first shade here is Glad You Came. This is in my inner corner and I have a little bit on my chin as well. And all the highlighters in this palette swatch the same, like the same formula, same pigmentation. Next we have the shade On the Loose. This one's a bit peachier and a little gold, but it's also not super warm either. So this is the next shade. You guys can see they swatch really similarly. And then the next shade is probably my favorite shade in the palette. I'm wearing it today. It's Fine Lines. This is like that icy pink cool tone highlighter. Love highlighter shades like this. It's also a little bit champagne, so it's not like too pink. Then the shade On Tempo is like a purpley pink tone. It's like a deeper pink shade. Yes, I'm wearing that today, layered on top of Fine Lines. So I'm wearing both of those. They're so pretty. Just love the formula of these. Like, it's super consistent. It's a really easy review because I don't have any negatives, especially about the formula of this one, or like this whole palette. It's super consistent. Then we have Morning After. This has more of that gold hint to it. So Morning After is also a little bit deeper and it has a bronze hint to it. Super pretty. So you get a good variety of different shades. And then the last shade is called Losing Sleep. This is a deeper highlighter as well. So you guys can see that all the highlighters swatch really consistent. You have some warm tones, some cool tones, and then also some neutral highlighters. But what I really like, especially with the warm tones like these down here and then this peachier highlighter, they're not yellow. They're not so gold that they end up looking orange or yellow, because I really do not like that in a highlighter. So to me, like, I would wear all of these highlighters and they are very, very pigmented. They can get very intense and like that blinding highlighter look, but you can also have them be subtle as well. So I'm loving the formula. It melts into your skin really nicely. I really like all of these tones, and I'm not somebody who's super big into highlighters, but I just felt like when I saw this palette, we've seen so many like very out there highlighter palettes lately, and I wanted something that was more like sticking to the basics, but you still get good variety in here and you get really great pigmentation and really great formula. So I'm gonna go ahead into the tutorial so you guys can see how I did my eye look today with the Give It To Me Straight palette, and then also my highlighter with the InNudeEndo highlighter palette. All right, so getting into the eyeshadow palette, I wanna do a purple tone look, and there are a lot of purpley and berry tones in here. So I actually don't know what I want to do with the colors, but I'm going to use as many as possible. And let's start out with this base color, this matte color up here that's called Matter of Fact. My eyes are already primed, and I always set my eyes, but I also go in with whatever the base color is in the palette to set my eyes again, even though I always use my face powder to set it, just because the shade is there, and that way I can also highlight my brow bone a little bit at the same time. So for my first transition shade, I'm gonna use this matte shade. It's called Downright. It's like this cool, really light purple shade. And then I'm gonna use a couple of the other mattes to build it up. I'm gonna apply this kind of all over my crease and a little bit higher since it is a lighter color. And I'm just using my Sigma E40. And then I'll probably use one of the brown shades to smoke it out a little bit. So I'm gonna take this berry color, TMI, and I'm gonna take just a denser crease brush. I'm gonna apply that. I'm gonna focus it on the outer edge of my crease, just like an outer V, or just like the outer third of my eye. And then whatever left over on my brush, I'm just gonna push into my crease and just diffuse it out a bit. And the mattes in this palette actually go on pretty pigmented. I was really surprised the first time I used the palette, and there's like a couple lighter like brownish orange shades, and I thought they were gonna show up kind of sheer, and I got a whole lot of pigmentation. So that's definitely something to keep in mind, that the lighter shades, they look a little lighter in the pan, but you're gonna get a lot of color payoff with these mattes. So you probably want to go in with a fairly light hand unless you're going all out with some color, which I like about this palette, because some of the other Colourpop palettes I have, they have a lot of neutral shades, and a lot of these shades are also neutral, but then you do get a lot of these like purple and plum tones that can be a lot more colorful if you use them all together, like I'm going to attempt to right now. I'm actually gonna go in with Straight Up, this shade on my lid, this kind of more of like a coppery neutral shade. That is the color. Is that the one I want? Yes. So I'm actually swatching the lightest shade, this one up front on my lid. I might want to do that. And then let me see how I like Straight Up. I'm actually gonna go for the lighter shade on my lid. And all of the shimmers, they swatch and apply the same except for Fourth Night. That one's a little bit more glittery, this darker purple color, but all the other ones are really, really consistent. So I'm just gonna go in with Up Front. I'll go ahead and apply it all over with my finger. I might go in with some Fix Plus on top or at the end. I know I'm gonna add a couple of the other berry tones to this look. So I want to start off with a lighter lid color, because once I build up my crease, it's just gonna look a lot more intense. And if I go in with that darker shade, it's just gonna end up being a little different than my original plan. So I'm just taking an angled shader brush. I'm gonna go in, I'm actually gonna go in with this dark burgundy, like eggplant shade. It's like a purpley brown shade. It's called Actually. I'm gonna apply just a tiny bit to the outer edge of my eye and just diffuse it in to build up that color. And all these purple tones just work so nicely together, which I love. Sometimes in palettes where they have like a couple pops of colors, they throw in like a purple or a blue, but they don't have any coordinating transition shades to go with them. And this one, like, you can get a lot of different purpley looks with this, a lot of different berry tone looks with this. I really like the intensity of like the outer edges of my eyes so far, and I definitely want to add Be Blunt to add some shimmer to the outside of my eye. But before that, I'm going to touch up the lid color. I'm just using some Fix Plus on Morphe M124, and I have to use my Coconut Fix Plus because I ran out of my regular Fix Plus, and I feel bad using one of my fancier Fix Pluses or wetting my brush, but I feel like it has to be Fix Plus and not another setting spray, otherwise it doesn't work as well. But that's probably all in my head. I'm sure any other setting spray works fine to wet your brush. And I'm just taking the shade Up Front and packing that on more so we can get a lot of shimmer. This is going to be like New Year's meets Valentine's Day. Except it's Monday afternoon right now, so I guess we'll just use our imagination. Ooh, I really like it from this angle. That just means I need to blend out the edge so it doesn't look so harsh. And that way, oops, I dipped my brush on the wrong color. But all the colors will blend together. So I love how there's just so much purple in this palette, because I never go for purple, because any palette I have that has purple in it, it's like a lid color and a dark matte purple. There's not anything to really build up a whole look with. And now I'm gonna go in with Be Blunt, and I'm just using a tapered crease brush. The name is not on here anymore, but I think it's like a Morphe 517 or 523, one of those, I'm pretty sure. But it's just a tapered, just any kind of tapered crease brush is gonna work. You want something that's not flat, that way you can get it like at an angle. And the reason I'm packing on a shimmer on top of those dark matte shades, just because I have smaller eyes, I like to add as much shimmer to eye looks as possible. I feel like sometimes mattes in the outer corner can make my eyes look like too heavy, especially if I'm using darker colors like this. So this is like a very subtle shimmer once it's layered on top of like darker shades, but that way it just like softens it up slightly. So I'm gonna add in this purple eyeliner from Urban Decay. This is in the shade Vice. I was just looking for a purple eyeliner in my drawer, and that's what we had to work with. So it's also shimmery, and if it's too much of a darker purple, then I'll just play with the lower lash line colors to make it all cohesive. So for my lower lash line, I'm using the two matte shades, the lighter one and a little bit of the darker one, mostly on the outer half. I'm gonna blend that into my eyeliner, that way it doesn't look so harsh. I'm actually gonna bring that all the way in, and then I'm also gonna add that dark eggplant shade to the outer edge of my eye. I also just added in a tiny bit of Forthright in like the inner third of my inner corner. And then I'm just gonna finish off with up front the lid color. Just wanna put it more so in the bottom edge of my inner corner. All right, so here is the whole look with lashes on. I just need to finish up with highlighter, and I'm gonna use a couple of the highlighters from the palette. I'm gonna start with Glad You Came. I'm just gonna use this as an inner corner highlight. Actually, might put a little bit down the center of my face too. This is the lightest highlighter in this highlighter palette. I'm just gonna take a tiny bit on my Cupid's bow and my chin, maybe a tiny bit on my nose. And my favorite highlighter in this palette is the shade Fine Lines. It's like this pinkish, cool tone, icy highlighter color. It's so pretty. So this shade is a little bronzy as well. And then I think I'm gonna layer that with On Tempo, which is more of like a darker pink hue. So this is Fine Lines and then On Tempo on top. So I'm gonna start with Fine Lines, and I'm probably gonna do a super highlighty look right now just so I can show you guys like the dimension of the highlighters and layering them. And I'm gonna use this denser highlighter brush. This is from Wet n Wild, with a little bit of On Tempo. And I just apply that more in the center of my cheekbone. This is more highlighter than I normally do. Ooh, this is a lot of highlighter. I'm actually gonna buff it up a little bit, but just so you guys can see. Ooh, that's a lot of highlighter, especially right here. I'm gonna buff that out just slightly so you guys can see the pigmentation. That's like mermaid highlighter going on right now. The pigmentation, the intensity is definitely there. Just gonna diffuse it slightly. I'm like super close up to a mirror, so once I look at my viewfinder, then I can see like the full-on pigmentation. So that's why I'm looking a little bit back and forth too. But that's like a really pretty combination, especially because I really love like cool tone highlighters, and those like these two, super pretty. I love the tones in here because nothing's too yellow, which I love. Nothing's too peachy. Nothing's too warm. I really don't like warm tone highlighters. I like bronze I like icy highlighters, and that's basically everything in this palette. Alright guys, so this is how everything turned out with the Colourpop palettes. I really like how this look came out because it's also something that's perfect for Valentine's Day, that you can wear for daytime with like a nude lip like this, or also do something more of a dramatic lip color for nighttime if you want, or like more dramatic with the eyes. I had wing liner. So that's what I really thought of when I saw this palette, that it would be really great for Valentine's Day. You get a lot of purpley tones in here, and then you also get some neutral tones. So like basically this whole outer edge is all like neutral shades, and then you get all your colors in there. And then the colorful shades that you do get in here are still very wearable. They're not like super out there or super outside of a lot of people's comfort zones, like oranges and purple tones, something that is still kind of in that neutral family, but you can still play it up to do something more colorful with all the transition shades. So that's what I really like about this palette, that it's very cohesive with all of those orange tones and then all of those like berry and plum and purple tones. So I do think you get a lot of good variety with this palette. I'm excited to play with it more. I've used a lot of the warm tones as well, but I definitely want to mix the like warm oranges and browns with some of the purple shades. I love looks like that with like a really warm crease and then like a purple on the lid. I think that would be really pretty, so I'll probably do that for Instagram really soon too. But overall, I'm really happy with both palettes. I really like both formulas. With some of the Colourpop eyeshadow palettes, like sometimes you get more glittery shades, some shades that don't have as much pigmentation, but I think generally you get a lot of pigmented shades in this palette. And then with the highlighter palette, it's just overall really consistent, which I love. And I just love the formula. I love the shades in here, so I'm definitely going to be using this a lot. I was really impressed with this palette. I saw a lot of good reviews for the previous Colourpop highlighter palette. I haven't tried out their highlighters before, so I was really excited about it because I heard a lot of good things, and it definitely like lived up to the hype with this palette. So you guys will see me use both of these a lot in upcoming tutorials, and just like in general, you'll see me wearing both of these palettes a lot. So if you guys have been interested in either of these palettes, I don't think you'll be disappointed. If you like the swatches and the colors, the color schemes in here, I think you guys will be really happy with them. And then also, if you've been interested in the Naked Heat palette, but you haven't purchased it and you want like those tones, you're gonna get them in here for sure. Like, there's so many similarities with the mattes and the shimmer shades. It's not like an identical dupe, but you can definitely get like very, very similar looks with both of those palettes. So definitely check that out if you guys are really interested in the colors. I just think the formula and the quality of both palettes are really consistent. Alright guys, so that is everything for today's video. Definitely let me know if you've picked up either of these palettes, if you plan on picking them up, or just what your favorite Colourpop product is in the comments below. And I'll let you guys know, I was so mad at myself when I placed the order for both of these. I got free shipping because it was over $30. It was like $35. And as soon as I placed my order, the second I placed my order, I remembered how much I really wanted to order a Colourpop No Filter Concealer because I still haven't tried that. So if you guys love that concealer, let me know in the comments. Let me know what shade you think I would be if we have like a similar complexion. I was a little confused about that, but I was so mad at myself that I forgot how much I wanted that until the second I already placed my order and paid for everything. So I'll have to get that next time at the next Colourpop release. But anyways, if you guys like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll talk to you guys soon in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.